Hello everybody, happy day 2 of the Academy. I wanted to hop on here and give you just some education, some things to consider as we move into this portion control theme along with counting macros for some of us. So I just wanted to kind of give you some insight on not only how to track macros, but how to look at maybe your plate and organize it in a way that you can, in your mind, do a checklist of protein, carb, and veggie. And fat is another thing that you want to consider whenever you're eating your food and looking at your plate. When it comes to portion control, there's a couple things that you can consider. A couple of those things being protein, color from your veggies. Any sort of color on your plate is a great thing. Think in your head, I want to eat the rainbow. So you want to include all different types of colors on your plate. Got my hardworking hubby over here. He was distracting me. So you've got protein, you've got color, and then you've got your carbohydrate. And I feel like a lot of times when we approach carbohydrates, we initially want to think that they're a bad thing. They're not a bad thing. I don't want you to be afraid to eat them. The thing with carbohydrates is they're easy to eat a lot of, which is one reason they can impact us in a negative way when it comes to reaching our goals. But carbs in general are not a bad thing. We need them to thrive. They're our body's initial source of energy, so don't consider them a bad thing at all. When it comes to putting it together, there's a couple ways that you can use your hand to kind of measure protein, carb, and fat on your plate. So if you have your hand open, the size of your palm, so this open from the top of your finger to the bottom of your palm, that's going to be the amount of protein that you can have on your plate that would roughly match about 4 ounces of meat. So that is a good rule of thumb to use when you're putting protein on your plate. You want it to be about the size of your hand. If you close your hand and you make a fist, this is about the size of a carbohydrate that you would have on your plate. So you can kind of picture, using just a really traditional serving spatula or serving spoon to maybe scoop out some potatoes onto your plate. So making a pile about this big, and maybe even rice also is another good example. That's also a good rule of thumb. And then when it comes to fats, the top of your thumb would be a good way to measure fats. So maybe you could think of it in relationship to butter, or if you're putting oil maybe in your noodles or on your pan to cook, you don't want to put more than like the crease right here of your thumb up, that amount of fat into what you're eating. Those are 3 ways you can kind of measure with your hand how to put those types of foods onto your plate so that you can create a good portion control, a good meal that incorporates portion control. Additionally, when it comes to vegetables, we know they're super important. They're way more important than a lot of times we let ourselves believe. Like we know they're important, we know that, but we really do need to take that knowledge, that fact, and really apply it to our life to not only feel good, but perform well and think well. When it comes to putting vegetables on your plate, you really can't put too many on your plate. It would be kind of hard to do that. For a lot of us, I think it's just incorporating them more often in general. When it comes to calories, vegetables don't really have a significant weight in calorie. I mean, you could eat a ton of spinach and a ton of carrots, and it wouldn't even match to the amount of calories that would hold you energy-wise for a long period of time. So that's not something to worry about when it comes to veggies being calories. We consume them for the nutrients, and that's why they're significant. In regards to numbers, there's a way you can kind of log your food and look at numbers specifically as you're eating throughout your day to kind of measure how many calories you're eating and then how many grams of protein, carb, and fat that you're eating. In the nutritional guide that you received at the beginning of the Academy, it kind of talks about those 3 macronutrients, protein, fat, and carb, and how they not only help us reach our goals, but how they each contribute to the amount of calories, the amount of energy that food is worth. When it comes to like your big meals that you're eating throughout your day, calorie-wise, between 300 and like 450, 500 is going to be a good range. And if you kind of do the math, it ends up putting you around maybe between 1,500 and 2,000 calories at the end of your day, which is in most cases a good range for the general population. And that being said, within that calorie range, there's a breakup of protein, carb, and fat. And if you were to count your macros, you could figure out how many grams of protein, fat, and carb are in your meals to make up those calories. And this is a conversation that I've had with some of you about how counting macros is a really effective way to not only learn more about food, but to put you in a state where you are using food to the best of your ability to reach your goals. So if that's not a conversation I've had with you yet, and that's something that you want to learn more about and implement throughout your day, we can totally have that conversation and get that started. So I wanted to walk you through how you can use macros and log them and count them effectively. This is the MyFitnessPal app that I use to log my food. So as you can see at the very top, it includes a calorie number that I am trying to hit, which is around 1,900 calories. And so as I log my food throughout my day, that number, the number where food is, will change as I start consuming calories. And real quick, I wanted to point out, it does include exercise within this calculation. You can see that right here at the top. But when it comes to counting your calories and looking at that in relation to your energy output for exercise, that's not really a number I would include in regards to your calculations. So if your Fitbit's attached to your app and it's kind of subtracting or adding calories based on your movement, I would just avoid those numbers because you just want to specifically look at your calorie goal in general. So let's say I want to add some food. So I can press the add button at the bottom, or I can press, if I'm at breakfast, I can press add food. And then these are just some common foods that I log frequently. But if you wanted to log a new food, you can go ahead and press the barcode scanner here at the top. Okay, and what it will do is it will create a scenario where you can log your food with the barcode scanner on it. So if I were to scan this barcode, what it will pull up is this information right here in the nutrition facts label. So you'll see that each serving is 1/3 of a cup, and when given 1/3 of a cup, these are the nutrients that you receive. So you receive 8 grams of fat, 1 gram of carbohydrates, and 6 grams of protein. So let's go ahead and see. So scanned it. And as you can see, those numbers right there at the top include the information that you see on the nutrition label. And so right here is where you can adjust the serving size. So let's say instead of having 1/3 of a cup, I actually had a cup. I can go ahead and select that, or I can keep it at 1/3 of a cup and then measure the amount of servings that I had. So let's say I had a little more than 1/3 of a cup. I would maybe say I had 1.2 servings of cheese. And what's nice is that you can change the serving size in regards to what it's measuring. And then for numbers of servings, you can do fractions or decimals. So some people have a preference. Either one works great. So we can go ahead and log it. And then what you'll notice at the top is that my calorie intake changed, and then as I go throughout my day, that will continue to log accordingly. When it comes to meat, I wanted to go ahead and show you this. So I press my barcode scanner. This is some meat right here that I got from Costco. What you'll notice, and this is true for a lot of different meats, is that the serving sizes, sorry, I'm shaking. The serving sizes are in terms of ounces, and you can see that here. Now, ounces are kind of hard to measure without a scale, but if you do this for a long period of time, you can kind of eyeball what 3 ounces of chicken looks like, or 4 ounces in some cases is what it's measured as, but yes. So within 3 ounces, these are the nutrients that I am receiving, 110 calories, and that's made up of 2.5 grams of fat, no carbohydrates, and 22 grams of protein. So let's go ahead and see. So there it's scanned, and my serving size, I can change to 1 ounce if I wanted to, but we can also go ahead and keep it at 3. Number of servings, let's say, is 1. I can go ahead and log it. And what's really cool too, you can click the calories remaining here at the top, and this is a premium version that I have. These bar graphs are showing you how many of each macro you have consumed, and then off to the right here you can see how many you have left, what your goal is, and then your total would be what you're at currently for that day. This is the food scale that I use to measure the food that I'm eating. A lot of times I'll use it to measure with ounces or grams. So right now you'll see that the unit is in milliliters. I can change the unit according to what I'm eating. This would be pounds and ounces. So like this right here would be 9 ounces. And then it goes up to a pound, you can see. This would be 2 pounds. Fluid ounces you don't really use a whole lot. And then grams is the other one that you would use frequently. That would kind of help you measure things like cereal or oatmeal. Let's go back to the ounces. All right, so let's see how heavy this whole thing of meat is. So it's right at 1 pound. So half of this would be 5 ounces, and about 1/4 of it, so this right here would be about 4 ounces of chicken. On a lot of the scales that you use, if you put something like a plate on it, it will measure the plate, but you can go ahead and press the power button and it will, or maybe yeah. Oops. So it sets it back at 0, so now the food that I place on my plate, it'll measure accordingly, which makes it nice and easy because then you can say, okay, this is how much, meat this is. A lot of times you might have your meat over here to the side and your goal is 4 ounces, so you might just place meat on the plate until you get to the point that you want to be at. Here we have some Special K cereal, and on the nutrition label you will see that the serving size is labeled as within cups, or in parentheses it has 42 grams. So let's say you don't use a measuring cup to measure how much cereal you're eating. Instead, you could, put your bowl on your scale, change the unit to grams, okay, reset. And then what you would do is you would pour your cereal onto your bowl until this number got to 42 grams. And then that is the way that you can measure how much cereal you're eating. Things like crackers, you might notice on the serving size is labeled as pieces. So this would be per cracker. And then 31 grams is something you could use for the scale as well. An example of some pasta here would be labeled with cups, or it says 56 grams dry. So you would measure this, you would measure the pasta dry. The weight changes as it soaks up the water. I hope that was helpful and it gave you a place to start as we move into not only week 1, but the rest of these 8 weeks and beyond. Please let me know if you have questions.